In this video, we're going to look at how to factor out the greatest common factor from a polynomial. So here we've got 4p plus 12. This is called a binomial because it has two terms. And when we get into factoring, the first step in any factoring problem is going to be to factor out the greatest common factor, if there is one. And so when we look at this binomial, we look at each term individually and we want to see if there is a common factor that will go into both of these terms. And so we see that this term has a 4, this is a 12, and we know that 4 and 12 are both divisible by 2, but that is not the largest thing they're divisible by. The largest common factor they have is 4, so that would be the greatest common factor that we would want to factor out is a 4. Well, when you factor out a greatest common factor, you're basically dividing each term by that greatest common factor. So in this case, we're going to divide each term by 4. If we divide 4p by 4, that's just going to leave us with p. If we divide 12 by 4, that's going to leave us with 3. And so we will have 4 times p plus 3. Now, in order to check to make sure you did that correctly, you want to distribute this back out and make sure you get the polynomial that you started with. So if you multiply 4 times p, that's 4p, and 4 times 3, that's positive 12. And so that is correct. All right, let's look at another one. What if we have 14y cubed plus 7y? Okay, once again, we have a binomial. We're looking for what these terms have in common, the largest thing they have in common. For the number part, we have a 14 and a 7. The largest number that'll go evenly into both of those is 7, so we can factor out a 7. But in this problem, we can also factor out a y. This term has y cubed, which is like y times y times y. And this one just has one y, a single y. So as far as what they have in common, they have a y in common. So we're factoring out a 7y, which is like dividing each term by 7y. Well, if you divide the first term by 7y, that's going to give you 2y squared. And if you divide the second term by 7y, that's going to leave you with 1. Now let me show you what that looks like if you're having a hard time seeing it. You're taking that first term and dividing it by 7y, and then you're taking that second term and dividing it by 7y. When you divide, remember you subtract your exponents. 3 minus that understood 1 is 2y squared. That's where that term came from. And here, that's going to be 1. Anything divided by itself is 1, and that's where this term came from. Again, if you want to check that, you would distribute that back out. Let's see, 7y times 2y squared. When you multiply, you add your exponents, so you get 14y to the third, and then 7y times 1 is 7y, and we look and that matches what we started with. So we are correct on that one. Okay, let's try another one. If we have 15a to the fourth minus 25a squared. Okay, we look at our number part. We have 15 and we have 25. The biggest number that will go into 15 and 25 evenly is 5, so I know I can factor out a 5. This has an a to the fourth, and this has an a squared. And so the most I can take out would be an a squared. And that is going to leave, let's see, we'll work it out right here. If we divide the first one by 5a squared, 15 divided by 5 is 3. Subtract your exponents. That would leave 3a squared here. Then we divide the second one. You can put the negative here, or you can just go ahead and put it here. 25a squared divided by 5a squared. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Here, if we subtract our exponents, 2 minus 2 is 0, and anything to the 0 power is 1. So basically, these a squareds just go away. They cancel out, or they become one whole. And so this is just going to be 5. And so we have 3a squared minus 5. Again, distribute to check. Let's see. Let's do one that's not a binomial. What if we have 16d to the third power plus 24d squared minus 32d? Okay, we've got a trinomial this time, but you do it the same way. But you just have to look at all three terms and see what they have in common. So let's look at the number part first. 16, 24, and 32. We're looking for the largest number that will go into all three of those evenly. And I do believe that's going to be 8. So we're going to factor out an 8. As far as our variable portion, we've got d to the third, d squared, and d. So the most we can take out is a d. It has to be something that they all have. And so since this one only has a d, the most we could take out is a d. You couldn't take out a d squared because this one doesn't have enough to take out a d squared. You couldn't take out a d cubed because neither of these would have enough to take out a d cubed. So we're going to take out 8d, or factor out 8d, which means we're going to basically divide each term by 8d. So for the first term, that's going to leave 2d squared. For the middle term, that's going to leave 3d. And for the last term, that's going to leave minus 4. Okay? And then again, if you wanted to check that, you could distribute the 8d out and make sure you get the polynomial that you started with. All right, we're going to do a few more. We're back to a binomial. This time we have x to the 5th power plus x cubed. Again, you're looking for the largest thing that these have in common. We can see that they have x's. How many x's can we take out? Well, the most we'd be able to factor out would be x cubed, because that's as many as this term has. That's going to leave from our first term x squared, and then if we divide this by x cubed, that's going to give us 1. Again, remember, this has to distribute and give you back what you started with. So a lot of students will make the mistake and say, when they divide this by x cubed, it's gone. It's not gone. X cubed divided by x cubed is 1. We've got to have that 1 there so that when we distribute this back together, we'll get this. All right, let's see. Just a few more. I've got 10x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th plus 4x squared. Okay, I'm going to look at my number part first. I have a 10, a 2, and a 4. So the greatest common factor for those three numbers is 2, so I know I can factor out a 2. As far as my x's go, I have x to the 5th, x to the 4th, and x squared. Since this one only has an x squared, that's going to be the most I can take out as an x squared. So I'm dividing each of these terms by 2x squared. For the first term, that's going to give me 5x cubed. For my middle term, it's going to give me minus 1x squared. Now, you don't have to put the 1 there, but 2 divided by 2 is 1, and it would be negative because this is negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. You can just put minus x squared right there. And then for the last term, 4x squared divided by 2x squared is 2. And that would be what we would get when we factor out 2x squared. All right, sometimes we can have multiple variables in our polynomial, like here. I'm back to a binomial, but this time I've got x's and y's in each term. So I'm looking for my greatest common factor. I'm going to look at my number part first. I've got 21 and 28. The largest number that I can think of that'll go into both of those is going to be 7, so I can factor out a 7. For my x's, I have an x squared and an x cubed. I'm going to be able to take out an x squared. and then each term has a y, so I should be able to factor out a y. So this time I'm factoring out a 7x squared y. From my first term, that's going to leave me with just a 3 because I've got the x squared y right here. 7 times 3 makes the 21. Then here I'm going to have minus 4 for the number part. I will still have an x, and I think that's all. Okay, so if it helps you remember, you can write each division problem out here. You're dividing each of these terms by 7x squared y. And when we divide, we subtract our exponents. So here, those make 1, those make 1. So 21 divided by 7 is 3. Here, x to the third minus, or divided by x squared, we would subtract the exponents. 3 minus 2, that leaves an x. And then the y's make one whole. 28 divided by 7 is 4. So you can see that's where we got 4x. Let's try one more with multiple variables in it. We've got 12a squared b cubed minus 14ab plus 10ab squared. Okay, we're looking for a greatest common factor. Let's look at the number part first. We have a 12, 14, and 10. The largest number that we'll divide into all of those is 2. So let's factor out a 2. We have a's. We have an a squared, an a, and an a. So the most we can take out is an a. Then we have a b cubed, and a b squared. This one only has one b, so that's the most we're going to be able to take out. So if we divide each of these by 2ab, that's going to leave 6ab squared for the first one, minus 7. We divided out the a and the b, so those are out here. So this is just minus 7, and then plus 5b. Okay, again, check it by distributing. 12a squared b cubed, and then minus 14ab, and then plus 10ab squared.